Big Z Reviews. Invincible is a new animated superhero series on Amazon Prime that had been releasing like weekly and just recently fully finished its first season. And it is one of the best like superhero like things that have come out in a while.
Follow me. Slow down. Land. I said land. Stop! Get up.
I'm actually getting used to this a little.
That's not good.
You need to be better. After everything he's done, how can I live up to all that?
You need to decide what kind of hero you want to be.
So the main creator of this show, like in the comics, and the screenplay and all this stuff, and he's in pretty much in charge, is Robert Kirkman, from The Walking Dead. And he has said that they've been confirmed that this show for 2 more seasons, but he said he can see it going for like 10. And there's also, because it's been the Buzzbound, this has been so good, there's talk about doing some sort of live action thing. And I mean, who knows? But this is such a good show. And like the only limiting factors like for recommending it to people is that it is animated and it is incredibly violent. I would recommend this show to everyone, but it does get very violent, very gory at times. But I kind of love that because every single other superhero product, especially all of the Marvel movies and pretty sure all the DC films and all the shows and most of the comics too, and all the other animated shows from Marvel and DC, like they're all featuring like super powered people and their fight and they're destroying cities and stuff, but they never show the actual toll that would have. Like, if another superpowered people fight, and someone as strong as Superman punch someone, there's a decent chance his head would explode. Especially if he may not be necessarily a good guy, and it feels real. Like, it's so funny because it's an animated series that would feel so real. Because I mean, like, if you have superpowers, like, and two, even just the being a superhero, if you live in this universe where all of a sudden you're in New York City and a portal would open up and the whole army, an alien army would come through and murdering everyone they see, and if you're a first-time superhero and you go to help them, and it could be devastating. It's like a soldier going into war. I mean, it's so well crafted because I mean the basic idea is that it's mainly more like DC. Like there's and I avoid most spoilers except for like what happens in the first episode, but that's kind of what happens in the first episode important for a lot of what the rest of the series talks about. So I will keep it spoilers down, but only to that because it's tough to talk about the show without spoiling the first episode. But essentially, this is a world with superheroes, definitely modeled more on DC than Marvel. Like there aren't many like the archetypes of the superheroes. There aren't many Marvel characters that are kind of similar. Like I say, there is like Nick Cage. Yeah, one of the characters is like Nick Cage, and one that had the Netflix show. But everyone else, like there's a Justice version of the Justice League, and there's like one that's kind of like a mix between Thor and Wonder Woman. But like I mean, they have like a version of Batman, they have a version of Aquaman, they have a version of the Flash, and the main person that he's not in the Justice League, but he teams up with them, is Omni Man, and that's like Superman, and he is voiced by J.K. Simmons, who is excellent in this, and that's Nolan Grayson, and is his like real name or whatever. And like his son is Mark Grayson, voiced by Stephen Yuen. Also does really great voice work here. And like the mother is Sandra Oh as Debbie Grayson. And the whole main like Mark Grayson, he is the Invincible is a superhero name, and he is kind of your introduction to this universe. Like he is his character, like he knows his dad is a superhero, but he's kind of been waiting to get his powers, and like finally does. Like in the first episode, he's essentially just taking the trash out, and he goes to toss it in a dumpster, and it like enters orbit, and like, oh, I got my powers, and it's so interesting because like J.K. Simmons as Nolan Grayson, he's like Superman, where he's like an alien that came to Earth, but this time it's a little different because he came like as an adult, and he says that he was sent here to like serve the planet and keep it safe from all the things. They'd have a hero that could keep the Earth safe, and that but it's interesting because there's so much stuff like that. Like I think this would be really rewatchable because there's when Mark Grayson tells him he gets his powers, like you see he like Nolan's like almost looks upset, like his reaction is odd. But then it changes. Like always excited to train the kid, even though it might go a little rough on him at times. But it's like so interesting. Like you could tell as a viewer that there's something off about it. And then the end of the first episode, it's so interesting because they show like as like there's like a call to the World Defense League, I think it's called, the Justice League, but they all, you see all in their like normal identities and what they're doing, and like they're really interesting. And they have some ones that are really different, like one that's kind of like the cat, the mutant, like kind of a little bit, or like Vision, like he kind of can like they change the density, or goes in through walls and stuff. But like there's like you see them all, and they're like the characters are really cool, and I'm like, oh cool, I'm really looking forward to this. And again, spoiler, but I think to talk about it you have to kind of spoil the first episode. But if you don't want to have any spoilers for the first episode, you might want to stop now. But essentially, Omni-Man comes in and murders the whole entire Justice League, and the rest of the show is kind of like there's most of it is kind of an origin story for Invincible, with him training and figuring out how to use his powers and getting stronger. And he's like, but the other shoe is waiting to fall, because the whole season, like that they're trying to people are trying to figure out, who did it, and there's like this Hellboy character, and that who's really more of a detective than Hellboy is. So, but there's also other people, like it's kind of like a little Nick Fury type that's in charge of everything. They're trying to figure out who killed all the strongest superheroes in the world and why, and what happened, and what But then there's also Invincible like learning his powers and teaming up with a young team. It's kind of like the Teen Titans sort of thing, or like the New Warriors, or I guess the new version of the Champions from Marvel. So like all the youngest heroes, and there's a lot of great ones in this group. And then there's also like this trials for like a new Justice League, who they're gonna be, and there's a lot of great characters here. And like there's the robot that's really interesting, different stuff with Monster Girl and Adam Eve, which is kind of like completely original. Like there's not that much like of a version of her I could really compare to that much. And there's a lot of great characters here. Like every character you see, even like I said, even all the Justice League people, like they feel so well formed and like interesting, and you want to see more of them, even if like maybe the show won't get to them or they're killed off right away. But everyone you kind of want to see more of them. Even like they show some villains, and some villains that become more important, like the Mauler twins, and it's so like everyone's like there's like very different and interesting. Like I want to see more. I want to see season after season of this. but like there's like so much here because like it's like you can feel like the bond between the father and son is so strong, but then at the same time, you like as a viewer, you know that well he's evil, or he has for some reason he killed the Earth's best defenders. Like we don't know why, but that's the hanging over the whole season, like wondering what's gonna happen, and like when like the finale, like the last episode or last couple like leading up to that is insane and devastating, and but really well told too, but like honest, but also very gory and very extreme. But like I really, that's the first time I've ever seen a superhero battle or like where it felt like yeah, if there were these superpowered people, that was what would happen. Like thousands of people would die, you know, in these battles that they show in the movies and everything, and it's really well done. I really love how they crafted this, and the animation is excellent. And like you see like some like for like one alien army, you can see that like the copies of the computer, like it's all I think all like computer animation, but like some of the stuff is that you can say okay that's not as good, but most of it is amazingly like animated, and like the whole all the voice actors are so good, like every single one is just excellent, and I would highly recommend it. It's just again the only thing is there's a lot there's a decent amount or a lot of gore, like but if you can get through, if you don't mind that, this is one of the best kind of superhero things out there. And I love that it kind of goes different, like a different way of telling a superhero story, but it's amazing. I'd probably give it like a 10 out of 10. It's honestly an excellent show that I would highly recommend. But thanks for watching. If you want to see any more of me, you can subscribe down below. See you next time.